Welcome back. We're going to see if this penny box is huntable. We're going to do a full box hunt on it. It is indeed huntable. Of course, we're going to take out the wheat pennies and the copper pennies and anything else crazy we find. I'm going to do this in 2 segments at least. But I'll piece it all together just to make it a little bit easier on myself. And so I don't have a whole mess of pennies just floating around. But like I said, looking for wheat pennies, gonna keep the copper too. That's 1981 and older. 1982s get set aside as well. There's a couple other errors that we know. And then steel pennies if we can find any. But that's the main gist of what we are going to be looking for in this video. Ooh. 95. I know there's a couple. Here's the first copper. There's a couple in the 92 range that have different errors. Gonna see if there's any die cracks, which usually are fairly noticeable. That's a D, 69D. Oh, first wheat penny, first roll, 51. There we go. 59. So I don't know that the copper pennies will ever be worth more than a penny. 98 I think is one of the years for the close AM or separated AM errors. I think it's 92, 98, 99. So I'll set those aside. But actually, I pay attention to the year, so this video will be a little bit longer. For those of you going to stick it out. Also, going to talk about finances. That's going to be a main topic. So investing, been watching a lot of investment videos. A lot of videos dealing with, how they quote rich, how the rich people think. And like one of the videos is talking about how, instead of doing a daily Starbucks drink that they buy, they'll buy stock in Starbucks. I got enough peas and things like that. So it got me interested. Oh, second roll, first Canadian. See year on it, 07. Ooh, and I already see ahead. We got our second wheat as well. Gonna be checking that year out soon. If I can keep the coins together. But it really got me thinking about investment strategies. And of course, don't just take my word for it. Ooh, that's an S45. But, we're heading into an interesting time with the election coming up. First debate happened. But definitely going into an interesting time where there's going to be a lot of unknowns, a lot of changes, depending on which party gets into office, and it could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, could be a null thing. I mean, it's hard to say what will happen down the road. I'm rechecking one. It's an 04. It was super shiny. I thought it was going to be a newer one. Thought the back was just wrong one. But it's kind of hard to predict. That's an 82. That's our first 82. It has 4 potential variations, 2 of which can be copper. So we'll set that aside. Ooh, Lincoln, first 09. And you know, they were also talking about one of the most important things is that no matter how the economy is doing, and a lot of people and videos I've watched have said the same thing, it doesn't really matter how the economy is doing, but it's making sure that you invest and keep investing. So if we're down, they're saying, you know, you get the stock for a lot cheaper, you get the property for a lot cheaper, you know, depending on what's going on. So investment becomes really important during those years, and then it's just as important during the high years, because if it keeps rising, because we never know what the stock market's going to do, if it keeps going up, what you bought into is going to keep going up. So I think we're heading into a very interesting time, and you know, made me really think about what I'm doing investment wise, and if I'm doing enough, if I can do a little bit more. But I think a key piece of that is also, if you can't do that much, why can't you do that much? You know, different bills. Really should have. I'm going to change that. Put the copper on this side. Why can't you invest more? If it's because you have a lot of bills that you're paying, you know, work to get them paid off as quickly as possible. There's 2 methods that people really go for. Ramsey is doing the snowball effect, where you pay off your lowest payment first, and then you use that money into the next lowest, and you continue on that route. So eventually, by the time you get to the highest bill that you have, in 82, you're throwing everything you can at it to pay it off as quickly as possible. The other one I've heard talked about not as much is the avalanche, where you start with the highest interest and you work your way down. And there's advantages for both. I've heard positive things said about both. Though the snowball one is because it's a little bit easier to get your first win. So if you need to see positive changes, you know, you need to see positive progress, you know, it's a lot easier to get a win and see that with the snowball effect, because you're paying off the smallest. And with the avalanche, they say over time you'll save more money doing it that way. I mean, I guess it also depends on the interest rates and how much you owe. I kind of I don't know that when I was going to pay off, I never really had a credit card balance that was super high. I couldn't pay off at any time. So the other ones were like my student loans, and those ones I didn't look at the interest. I looked at the smallest one to try to knock it out first. So I guess I was more snowball method on that. But I mean, different times also call for different strategies. But I think the main thing, I've always been careful not to let credit cards creep up too much. Because if you're earning, say, 1% cash back or points, and you're paying more in the interest than what you're actually getting back, it's hurting. And I've always been I've always had that idealistic point of view where I don't want to pay you more money than I have to. But since I've started paying a lot more, trying to get out of debt, I've set the credit card aside. I still have some of my bills go to it, so it still sees a little bit of charge, but that's also in the budget because it's like the electric bill happens every month, is the same amount, so I can plan for it. I got some of the subscriptions, like Amazon will get billed to that, and that'll get paid off. Amazon Prime. So like some of those subscriptions that are consistent and that you can put on a credit card to pay off, I do. And I have noticed that since I'm not buying as much, my rewards are not going up that quickly. But at the same time, while I may not get that 1 to 2% cash back, or up to 5 based on the category, they make it sound good, I have a lot more control. And with the more control, I'm able to then invest more. I'm able to pay off the loan. I was able to pay off the loans quicker and just be able to save more. And I'm not relying on that 1%. I'm saving more than 1% by not using the card. Because I was finding that even though I was paying it off, it was so much easier to swipe the card. Swipe the credit card and pay it off later when you get paid than it was to use cash. So now I've just gotten into the habit of going to the bank, withdrawing cash, using the envelope system. If you don't know what that is, it's having a budget and putting cash inside an envelope to show what you have budget-wise. You physically see it. You go to the store, you only have $100 for groceries for that week. So you have to be strategical, and when you're paying off that, you're not going to eat out at restaurants if you want to pay it off quickly, for sure. But it's a sacrifice that is not long. I mean, depending on how much in debt you are, it's not long term. You're gonna be able to afford more later on. But how I'm kind of thinking is, if I keep doing what I'm doing, I'll invest the extra for a little bit, and that way I make up. I won't fully ever make up, but I'll make up for some of the time I wasn't investing to get more money in the game, and then I'll redo the budget. But the budget is something I wrote down on paper to last to September. So it's a short-term budget that's going to be readjusted in September. And I made sure it was agreed upon. Wife agreed on it. I agreed on it. We can live off of it for that time period. Then reassess it then. See a wheat penny. I see a 1.7, but I don't know what year. But it is something that you do have to be on board with your partner on. Because if you're going to live strategically and live on a budget, it doesn't help if the other party goes and spends a lot of money, because it's counterproductive. So that is one thing I will say. If you're thinking about it, you need to have that conversation. Now, if you're single, it's a lot easier of a conversation and a decision because it's just on you. So that's the benefit, I guess, of being single. And the downside is that you may need to get a second job to pay it off quicker, and it depends on your financial goals and where you want to be. It's what they say, it's your life. You do what you want to do. So I just think it's refreshing. The only thing I owe now is a mortgage, which really I know it can increase based on the property tax and all that, but after the first year you think it's going to be set for a couple years, and then it increases, and you're like, what the hell, wasn't planning on it. But now that increase still hurt, because it's something I gotta take it out of somewhere, but it hurts a little bit less. I think that's kind of management. And right now in stocks, I'm making, like this month I made $5 back in stocks. So that's an additional $5 I can invest this month. I have it done automatically where I'm buying certain ones. And certain days I'm doing it kind of sporadically, not too much. I think right now it's $40 a week, and that's on top of what I'm putting into work. So this is additional, which is, I think, the way to go. I'm hearing some people say that the 401k was never supposed to be the end-all be-all to retirement. It wasn't supposed to be everything you had to retire on. And then everybody's saying Social Security is not going to be there, which I find interesting, because if I can't collect and I've put so much into it, there should be a reimbursement check. There won't be. I'm well aware there won't be a reimbursement check if it goes away. But the amount of money we're spending on other things as a country, we can't keep that up and running. Kind of seems ridiculous to me. That's just my point of view, my opinion. Agree, disagree, indifferent. Everybody has their right to their own opinions. But, so I'm already thinking I can't rely on that. So I gotta think ahead. I don't want to be close to retirement and thinking, can I retire? Do I have to keep working? I want to be, oh, I'm right there. I can go. Bye. And that's where I'm thinking. So I'm thinking down the line. I'm not thinking down the road. It's a highway, not a back road. But then again, it feels like a back road with all the crap that spirals up and comes around and changes. But that's why you also need an emergency fund. Because the one thing in life that's always guaranteed is change. Learned that at a young age, that change is consistent. Change is gonna happen, gonna be there, and you can't control it. So you gotta do your best to grow and adapt and learn to identify and alter certain things that you can control. Like you can control your budget. You can't control if the market goes up or down. But you can control how much money you're putting into it. You can control what you're spending money on. So if you're going to the casino playing slots every weekend, you know, thinking you're going to hit it big, that the casino owes you, it's more like you made a donation to the casino, in my point of view. Some people do win, you know, but I've put not a lot of money in, but I've played from time to time, and I've never won more than what I've put in. You know, I've never like tripled the money I've put in. So, but some people do have that luck on their side. Is that an S? No, D. So yeah. If you looking ahead, I guess that's where I am now. Oh, where'd that go? There it is. 04. Looking ahead, I'm listening to a couple different podcasts and financial talks. Thinking I want to keep the $40 going, at least 40. I do want to up it, but there's some other priorities coming up. Follow the channel, you know, kids on the way in September. So I want to start a school fund And there's been a lot of fun changes with the 529 accounts. So I gotta look into starting that. So still putting money away, just in a different form. And there's different tax write-offs for those. And then still want to grow the dividend stocks. And it's not going to be a quick process. I don't expect it to be. But if I can maintain every week it's $40 more, we're going to get somewhere. It's going to be a slow process, but I want to do at least 50. So every month it's 200 going in. And then climb from there. But I'm just not there yet to do it all year round. I'm thinking I can maintain, which is why I did 40, the 40 all year round. Just not at the 50 level yet. But I didn't do the math. I think that'd be an even 2,000 if you do it per week. And I just gotta watch the holidays, because the federal holidays, when the stock market is closed, I like to move when I invest whatever day the holiday is on, because I keep one day where I don't invest, and the rest of the time there's at least $5 going into the market, depending on the stock, because that's I use the platform I use. That's what it allows you to do as a minimum. So I can break it down even further and play the market where it is daily. But I don't know why, Monday, don't know why I picked that day to be the off day. But I did. Probably because I used to like Garfield. He hated Mondays, so. And that's not a good way to pick how you invest, but hey, it's a good as any. It's as good as any. 82. Getting a decent amount of 82s, that's good. The 82 Copper Denver is the one that's rare, that's worth some money. The small date Copper Denver. Where are you going? Hey, you went to the right file. Let me know if you have a good investment strategy that you guys like using and works for you. Leave it in the comments. Let's talk, let's compare. Learn how to or if you have a favorite ticker you like, leave it in the comments. This isn't for we're not going to try to get together and all buy it or anything like that. But there's some good tickers out there that people may not be aware of, and people can do their due diligence and do their research and see if they want to invest in that. There's different takes. I won't necessarily say different takes, but there's different ways to invest within the S&P 500. Like you use the Vanguard. There's there's another two that I go into. But I forget the ticker one on it. That's a interesting one. But, just seeing all the options, seeing what you like, and trying not to overthink. Because if you think too much, you're behind. If you're thinking and you're not investing, you're really deep diving on what you're investing in, you may not invest at all. But you could be in like an ETF while you're doing that, which is like the S&P 500. So you're in the stock, and you're looking at what else you're investing in, whether it's Dow Jones, things like that. I like to make sure I'm in it, because at the same time, I know if we can print money and increase inflation, the dollar in my pocket is not as good as a dollar that can increase with the market, because the banks change the rate of their return all the time. And I used to be a fan of certificate of deposits, but I don't like that. You give them the money and it's such a little return, and you can't touch it without penalty. I don't like that. When I was younger, I think I did like it was a lower end one, so it was like $500 for a CD. And I thought they were good, because they are safe investments. You're gonna, unless you need the money. If you need the money, then you can't without penalty. They're relatively safe investments. You can map out what you're gonna get in return and how much you have to put in there to get your return, but the length of time, I think I only did mine 6 months, but then if I didn't, it was a continual one. If I didn't tell them I was done, they would reinvest it automatically. So it would roll over, which in a sense is good, but also in a sense, if you didn't want to do it, now you have to wait an additional 6 months if you signed up for the continual one to pull your money out. And I don't know, there's just something about not being able to access it. Seems a little off to me now, but it didn't when I was younger. Then again, learning the financial world is a whole lot different when you got liabilities and a family. So that's one of the reasons I'm really deep diving into the finance part, trying to learn. If you guys know any good videos or podcasts, leave them in the description or in a comment below. Just trying to learn everything I can, and all while having Butterfingers, and that actually went there. Yep, just trying to learn everything I can. It's like a sponge. Wife is not that thrilled with it, but somebody has to do it. And I will will say I did all did start with a Ramsey show, and now I'm trying to grow beyond. Like, that was my jumping off starting point, which was a good starting point. You know, if you haven't seen it, he gives advice to people what to do in certain situations. Of course, it's just advice. They live their own lives. They can do it or not. But he has the thing called the baby steps, which I did get I found it at the Goodwill, one of his books, so I picked it up. And it looks like it's one of his workbooks that you got to fill out, like if you're going through the Financial Peace University that he has. So I don't know that I'll be able to fill it out, but it's a good good thing to flip through to think about. And then as I'm becoming more and more confident with my strategy, I think I'm gonna start talking to others about theirs and make sure we can all live happily. The ones close to me, make sure that they're thinking ahead. Make sure they're not putting the burden on their kids to take care of them when they're older. I mean, ooh, here we go. 1920. Ooh, I think that's our oldest one to date. See, never know what you're gonna pull. I think that's one of the reasons I'm hyper focused on it, is to make sure that me and my wife are always in a good spot. We don't have to think too hard. If we want to go on a vacation, we go. You know, that's how I'm trying to set up the future. And it takes a lot of work, dedication, and planning to do that. I will be the first to say it's not a click of a button. It's not simple. It takes work to put together a budget, but it is worth it. I grew up in a household where my dad didn't do a budget, so it's, you know, learning a whole new concept. Because his concept was, if he needed more money, he would go work longer hours, or, you know, whatever he needed to do to make it up. And that's all good in theory. It worked out for him, but certain jobs, you can't just, you know, like retail, they're not going to let you work overtime, because that really hurts their pocket if you get overtime hours, because that's time and a half. So they don't want you doing that. So now you have to go find another job, which can be difficult depending on your primary job, the hours and flexibility and things like that. So there's a lot of different variations that, you know, it's hard in theory. It's definitely easy. There's definitely different fields that it's a lot easier to just pick up and work more. Yep. but it's not always the easiest in every field. Just say, I'm gonna go work 10 extra hours and then everything's covered. Like, as you guys know, I got a little eBay store going with the coins, Whitesquirrelcoins. If you haven't seen it, check it out. I got the machine doubling coins on there. If I find silver, they'll be on there. But, you know, it's not always the easiest to earn a little bit extra. But I do have a spreadsheet now with whatever eBay pays me out. Certain portions are going to be reinvested into getting more coins, having hopefully the inventory. You know, if I find something, I want to be able to keep it and sell it. And a certain portion's going to personal collection. I think it's like 10 to 15% will be able to be reinvested into various coins for the personal collection. And then 10% now is going to go to helping people. Don't know how, don't know what yet. And it really happened when I was on vacation and saw a young lady crying, and was thinking how I could, what I could do to cheer her up. Because, you know, everybody's on vacation, it's supposed to be a fun time. And so I played an arcade game, which it was darts, and I got a prize for her and gave it to her. And then shortly after that, I noticed she was smiling. I didn't stick around right by her, but, you know, where we were sitting, we could still see her as they walked away. And that really made me realize that you can do good in the world with not that much money. So 10% of all sales will be going to help someone. Like I said, don't know how, don't know why, or don't know what yet. End of the year, I may put it in a charity. But I definitely want to help, give back. And like I said, don't know exactly how, but like those scenarios where you can make somebody else's day, you know, listen to a story about during a holiday like Thanksgiving, stopping at the local restaurant like Denny's, Waffle House, one of the ones that stay open, and ordering a coffee and leaving a couple $100 tip without saying a word, you know, without giving it to them, without expecting the appreciation token. And that seems like a fun idea. Seems like a great way to give back to various people. So like I said, I don't know how. If you have ideas, feel free, drop them in the comments. I check the comments, very susceptible to what you guys think, because I definitely want to do something. I just don't know what yet. Ooh, this might be a 2-part post. I didn't realize we're already at 45 minutes in. 45 minutes in. What was that 4 wheat pennies in 1920? It's not horrible, not horrible. I knew this video was going to be a little bit longer. Because I actually got to see the dates. Some of these are a little bit harder to see. All the while talking. But so yeah, so I have it set up. I think I have four categories set up for that. And then who knows if we start doing really well, because I think it's 50 or 60% reinvesting, and that's because I'm dealing with currency. So if I sell money, I gotta make sure I'm putting some money back into it, otherwise it's going elsewhere, and then I could quickly be done, and I don't want to do that. I want to grow. Ooh, second Canadian 2000. I want to grow, but I want to grow right. I want to do it the right way. And also thinking about sending some thank yous to some of the repeat buyers I've seen come up just out of the whim. I think that would be a good idea, fun idea. So I got a couple things going on in my head with what to do, and that wouldn't be from the 10% though. Thank you cards definitely not going to be from like the 10% for giving. That'll just be out of the reinvestment. But also, having oh yeah, most of the coins I have for sale are, like $4 or less. Most of them are like $4 for the machine doubling. They're all on eBay under, if you search Whitesquirrelcoins, it'll come up, because I made sure to put that in all my postings. Try to make it easy to find. I do not pay for a store, unfortunately, so the sifting through can be a pain. But I looked into a little bit. A lot of the benefits that paying for a store could get you doesn't really benefit me with what I'm doing. Still looking though. It's enticing, but at the same time, I don't think that's an 81 that would be the best use of the money for me currently. I'd rather save up and get 3 boxes. I don't know. Never got 3 boxes before. I feel like I'd struggle carrying it out. 2 boxes is quite heavy enough. If you know, you know. They're not light. I am a fan of the denser ones. The last 2 boxes I got were like the double layer. And I am a little bit of a fan of those. Still heavy, but a lot more easy to manage. But going back to investing, that's how my brain works. squirrels. With the way things are turning out, you know, I'm not trying to find the next best Amazon, next best anything. I'm just trying to make sure that my money stays consistent. Because when inflation hits, it hits. Also working, eventually, me and my brother will be blessed with a lot of different. Oh, that was bad. A lot of different opportunities and advantages not everybody has. Well aware of that. Got our dad has 2 houses. One's a rental, one's his own. We both are in a house, so we have some advantages. Way down the line, hopefully way down the line that, anything can happen. But do have some advantages coming out that we'll have to make some interesting decisions with. But at the same time, what I told my uncle, because Uncle's the type to remind you that what you have coming when he goes, I'd rather have the people here with their knowledge, because I'm not done asking questions, than I would. This is just super thick. Rather have them here than have their money, because their money is just digits on a piece of paper. So that's one thing. I don't know if that's shared often enough with loved ones, but once they're gone, you can't have that conversation with them. You can't ask them questions, and that wisdom is gone. So if it's not talked about early on, different things that you can ask, endless thing of how do you do, what happens if this happens, of knowledge that is gone when the generation before you goes, and nobody's ever ready for that. But I make sure anytime he says that to say, well, I'd rather have you around, so take care of yourself. Just remember that is a line you can use if you have somebody like that, because I think that's more meaningful than think about what they have, because again, that can all be gone tomorrow. They could decide, because it's theirs. He could decide he wants to go to Fiji and live out his days, sell everything he has here, and ain't nobody gonna stop him. And nobody should, if that's what he wants to do. Never been to Fiji. Never been to Bora Bora, but you know, I hear good things. But then, I guess that's also part of the planning for the future, is making sure you have, you know, your insurance is set up. That's one thing I think I have in a good spot currently. You can always up it, but at the same point, I don't want to pay for 6 different life insurances either. So it's just, you know, going through making sure you have the right plan for you. Because like I say, you don't want to have too much where your spouse is looking at you. Looking at you because you said something. And you're like, are they worth more money now? Or will they earn more money later? Nah, that's a joke. But you want to make sure that if accidents happen every day, especially the way people drive nowadays, you know, zigzagging in and out of traffic like their destination's gonna get there any quicker because they went through. I mean, it's not. One day it's gonna cause a huge delay because you're up in the hospital, but what do I know? I'm just a coin guy. It doesn't like going anywhere. But yeah, so you know, make sure that's right. Make sure you know you're leaving yourself and your spouse and your family something good. I like the quote that they should have time to mourn. It shouldn't be how are we paying for, you know, anything. It should be we can mourn as intended, intended. There we go. I always said bury me, put me in the casket face down, open casket, so everybody can kiss my ass on the way out, but I don't think my wife's gonna go for that. But if that's your intention, it's also a joke. I feel like the viewings for the living more than the dead anyway. It's always been that way. By the time the viewing comes, your body's an empty vessel. Unless that happens real quick. I do know some people have like really quick turnaround viewings. Then your body wouldn't be an empty vessel. But anything longer than 3 days, your body's an empty vessel, so. But what do I know? Just a coin guy. Alright, so that's part 1. I'm going to take a break. We're going to be back with part 2. I'm going to leave the setup how it is. So that way you know I didn't alter anything. And then when we come back, we'll keep going. We found 4 wheat pennies, 2 Canadian so far. Got probably half the box still to go. And we'll see what we can still pull. I'll catch you guys when I come back. Damn that. It'll probably be 2 uploads, maybe 1. I'll see if the app I use can just put it all together for 1 upload, but if not, 2. Anyway, see you guys soon. So quick question for you guys, because I know it's a big topic for financial investing and stuff. How much, well, not necessarily how much, because this question is going to depend person to person based on your cost of living, but how many months should your emergency fund be? Your fully funded emergency fund, not like, you know, the fund you start out with before you pay off just in case something comes up. But like when you're setting it aside in case you decide you want to quit your job, you know, the actual emergency cases. Because I was just listening to a video that said the recommended 6 months, 3 to 6 months, is not necessarily a good number that they liked. And they were thinking, you know, of course, dependent person to person. You know, if you have a job that is hard to find, you should plan more like a year out, a year of expenses being liquid, which means not in the market. And it's got me thinking, how much should I put in my emergency fund as I start to grow it and think about what I need it for? Because that's a big part of, I think, being an adult, is preparing for the future, even though it's uncertain. Because if something happens to your roof on your house, that is not a cheap repair. So you want to have money set aside for that. You know, car accident, you want to make sure you got enough to go get something. Granted, sometimes you'll walk away with a little bit of a check to help with, but not always guaranteed. I know a lot of people have their car loans and they get in an accident and they're upside down, and so they have to pay off the car that was just totaled before they can go get a new car, and that is brutal. Like, I can't imagine. I wouldn't want to be in that situation where I owe money on a car that was just totaled and now I don't have a car. Granted, you can always buy it back and fix it depending on what the fix is. You know, sometimes that's an option. That's just a brutal thing to have happen. And if that happened to you, let me know. Kind of curious. Luckily, it has not happened to me. Knock on wood. Only been in one car accident. I was rear-ended. And it wasn't a bad one. But I was leaving work. That was the most upsetting. It's like I was trying to go home. Couldn't go home. But yeah, everybody was all right. So it happens. Got a new bumper out of it. I had backed into a hitch years before, so that got repaired. It was a trailer hitch that I backed into. Just back too far up. But I wasn't gonna. I think they were trying to save a couple hundred to put a new bumper on. I was not feeling it. So then I got rear-ended and I got a new bumper. Because it was just a cosmetic thing. It wasn't wasn't any structural damage or anything like that. So it was just a cosmetic situation. And sometimes you make those choices because repairing it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, you want to have nice stuff, but a couple $100 for a bumper that no one's really gonna look at. And if they're judging you for a bumper, you know, whatever. But most people didn't even know unless I pointed it out. And after a while, it was totally normal. But so yeah, so it got me thinking about how much I want to put into emergency fund for those type of situations, like an accident, layoff, things like that. Especially with kid on the way, I'm thinking more and more about it to try to prepare myself financially as best as I can. There's only so much you can do. And I'm trying to take in different perspectives, because at the end of the day, it's always up to the individual what they do with their money. So somebody may sell a good shoe, but if you don't want to spend your money on it, you don't have to. And so been thinking the difference between 6 months and a year, what that could mean, what that would look like in the bank. Because emergency fund you don't touch, so it just sits. It grows a little bit of interest, but I mean it's not gonna gain much. Even in a high interest yield, it's still not gonna do too much. It's just it's there to be able to be liquidated. So that's why you wouldn't have it in the stock market, because if the stock market goes down, your money went down, and now you thought you had, say, 10,000 invested, and now it's only worth 5 because we're in a really lean year. You know, you can't afford what you thought you could. So I do get that concept. Do completely agree with that. Because when things are going wrong, you don't want to have to play a guessing game. And so, other than that, I got pennies all over the place. If I could stop dropping stuff, that would be. Halves are a little bit easier because they're bigger. But I also got big fingers, so pennies won't always be the easiest to do. But yeah, so talked about a bunch of things, finances. I'm very curious. You know, the debate just happened, presidential debate, and very curious what's going to happen out of that. Obviously, depending on what news outlet you listen to, you're going to hear different things. I don't really listen to the news. I did watch it, as I think everyone should have, because that is a civic duty, I do believe. It is a very important decision. And it's good to be informed in important decisions. When I was younger, I did not care about politics. Still kind of don't. But to make a really informed decision, I think you got to care somewhat. And it does end up affecting, certain key demographics, certain key issues and topics. It does affect. So, but aside from that, it's very curious. I'm curious what the market's going to end up doing. Obviously, the presidential election does have a lot to do with how the market does. If people are comfortable with who's about to take office, businesses spend a little bit more. I just dropped a coin that's not supposed to be in there. I don't see it. But they spend a little bit more. So that could help the economy. But I'm very curious. Supposedly we're not in a recession. I think that we kind of are. Is it this one I dropped? Yeah, that's no one. I think we kind of are. You're not seeing a lot of the movement I'm used to seeing in a good economy. The definition, I think, got changed recently. Within the last 10 years. But as far as like the amount of influencers that you used to see has gone down now, whether that's the people just not wanting to see that anymore, so they're not subscribing to it, so they're not making money doing it, or they all switch to OnlyFans. I don't know. But certain things that I was seeing, I'm not seeing. So maybe that has to do with it. Maybe nothing. Maybe that just has to do with, like I said, they moved on. People don't want to see somebody bragging about a vacation that they actually can't afford. They go get arrested overseas because they don't understand the culture, and what not to do. I think that was a funny one. Poor influencer. Went to like Dubai and disrespected the culture and got arrested. But so I am curious to see if this is going to turn around. If even what happens to the dollar. I feel like going to the store, I need to carry more 20s than what I had to a couple years ago. And then every time I turn around, we're spending money somewhere. Or not where, but we're writing the check for it. So, very interested to see what's going to happen. With them cutting off the mics, you didn't have a lot of the interrupting. There was some of it, but it wasn't like the previous years. Both people were waiting their turns. So I'm interested. That's really all I can say on that. If you got feelings on one way or another, you can leave them in the comments. You know, what were your big takeaways if you watched it? If you couldn't stomach it, I get it. But again, I feel certain things are civic duties that we should be paying attention to. And I think it is hard because you hear them say one thing and then when they get into office, they'll do another thing. So it's definitely not the easiest thing to do and understand, because everything changes. So I get it. Just a little bit I've followed politics. It's, you know, like not a puppet show, but it kind of feels like it sometimes. That went down anyway. What are you? 74. No wheat so far. Let's see if we can change some wheat. I mean, we got 4 for the box so far. 61 up top. So the reason I'm checking both sides is making sure there's no like die cracks. I have found a couple pennies with die cracks. Well, I found one. That was a major die crack. So checking for that. Of course, there's 4 different variants for the 82. I said that earlier. 81 in order is copper. So setting that aside, still don't know what the point is or what I'm going to do with it, but still a precious metal. And who knows, if the world goes to shit, you may need it. And it's only like I'm pulling out a couple bucks. So I don't feel too bad doing it. One last roll for this leg of the video. Already getting to be close to 20 minutes. What was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 rolls. Well, this is coin hunting, you know. You don't know what you're gonna find. You open it up and you go through it. Put aside what you want. Turn in what you don't. And I like to make a few extra dollars, like I said earlier. Putting together a fund to help people and do good things, pass along good deeds and stuff like that. So if you want to support the cause, you know, you can go right to eBay and buy some coins from me. Here's a Canadian. Whitesquirrelcoins. The link is in my page. I did make a link to it. But again, don't know how I'm gonna go about helping. I just feel the desire to help, and it's gonna start happening. All right, and we'll return with round 3. Round 4, something like that. I do not know how many I'm gonna get through before I'm called, but we can always try. So I did some calculations, and in the stock market that I have already invested the last 3 months before I started really putting money into it every week, and just the dividends, I got about $9 back in dividends in the last 3 months. So it's something, starting out with. That's a couple extra dollars to invest, and that's really what they refer to when they talk about compound interest, because you earn interest, or you earn dividends, you reinvest it, and then you earn on that as well. So I'm just out of curiosity, I looked, and I'm happy with the results so far. I just started. I don't have a lot of money invested currently, but that's what happens when you first start. You gotta start somewhere. But you can see the stocks when I was trying to trade more so based on company, not really knowing what I was doing. I lost money on it, but now since I'm, following the keeping it simple, keeping it what I understand, more so instead of individual stocks, doing the ETFs like the S&P 500, I've actually seen a gain. And so, you gotta start, and you gotta be willing to listen, and learn. But I've been enjoying it. Wife, on the other hand, will tell you I listen to it way too much, but I usually run, when I start something, I usually run it pretty heavily. So, in keeping with that, keep the same mentality. Make sure I understand, and with the finances, what I'm finding is more and more information comes out every day, obviously, because the markets change. So there we go, our first weed in a while, 58. With the markets ever changing, there's always more information coming, but I'm not trying to find the next big stock, but I do pay attention to economy overall, because again, I think that's important when you're investing. Again, even in the downturn of an economy, you still want to keep investing because it's going to even out. If you just buy when it's hot, you know, when it drops, you're going to feel a lot more. And it will. Nothing ever just goes up and stays up. You can look at any of the big stocks and you'll see that there's a dip. But everybody's pretty agreeable about 8 to 10% increase over a longer period of time. So it's not like every year you're going to see a 10% increase, but over like a 10-year period, there will be a about roughly 10% per year, because you may have one year that you lose 12%, but in the next year you're up 13, and then the following year you're up 18. So it all just depends. A lot of variations. I am learning that. I think that's good because it also helps make informed decisions, and not be a panic seller or buyer. Also, most people tend to agree, from what I'm listening to, that when the media starts talking about something, it is already too recognized. Like, it's too late to really get the most benefit. So like the people that like throw their money in because the media starts talking about the next big stock, that it's already there. There'll still be some uptick perhaps as the media frenzy feeds it, but overall it's not going to be, the gains are already made, I would say, just from what I'm listening to. But again, random person learning the stock market, so it's not like I'm 100%, just anything's possible, and that's why you gotta do your own research and never take just one person's advice. I mean, it's like going to the doctors. One person says you need a brain transplant, and then the next person says you're fine, you just need more salt. You know, I'd get a third opinion. This one has a weird coloration. You know, so just like with the doctor's opinions, seeking additional opinions before you make a decision, life-changing decision. Same thing. Do your research. Get multiple opinions. You know, everybody's putting theirs out on YouTube for free nowadays, a lot of people. So you can come by a couple of different opinions relatively quickly, especially with the stock market. And it's free. So somebody may say, you know, we're doing horrible. Somebody else may say we're doing great. You know, they're looking at different things. So it's about just finding out what they're looking into and why their opinion's that way, and see if you can make sense of it. If not, go to the next one. Find the person you like the most with how they articulate their ideas, and you know, always, even if you like everything they say, it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion. I know with dentist, my brother had like some loose teeth, and one dentist was just waiting and talking about pulling a lot of them. and he got a second opinion, and they're like, no, we can do a deep clean and they'll fix the problem. You know, you go from pulling teeth to just, we really need to get in there and clean. You know, up under the gum, and that'll, you know, cause the gums to come back and get re-loose, or stop being loose. From, we're gonna need to pull everything. So, second opinions never hurt. It's about making informed decisions, just like with your money. You know, you want to create a budget so you make informed decisions when it comes down to what you're spending it on, where you're putting it, how you're investing, what you're investing in, how you're saving, what kind of savings account. Is it high yield in a separate bank? Is it a just regular savings in your primary bank just in case you need it? You know, all the decisions that you can make. It does fall upon the individual to make them, but it's better to have those decisions than to not. A lot of people aren't in positions really where they can make decisions because they're living paycheck to paycheck. And so you really got to make that budget to help start being able to make those decisions. Because once you take control, you're not going to want to give it back. That was me. I grew up not knowing mentality was, well, if I need more money, I'll just go work more hours. And it worked for my dad, but you know, certain jobs you can't always work more hours. You know, so you gotta find different ways of how to prioritize, how to and he did various things too. It's not like he just did overtime. You know, he would scrap metal and do a lot of different things back when it was actually worth it. I don't know how worth it is now. But so there was a lot of different variations going on back then too. It wasn't just working extra hours, even though that's a lot of it. Yeah, just taking control. You're not going to want to give it back. And I think that's one of the main things I can say. Because when I started taking control, I don't want to go blindly again. I liked having, you know, I bought stuff I didn't need. Got hooked on owning things, and I felt like I was missing something, and I was. And once I started the budget and started strictly following it, there was some deviation, but you feel more free. When you go to make a purchase, you know, well, I don't have to rely on next week's check to pay for this. It's, oh no, I already paid for it. I already worked, I saved it. I can afford it. I don't have to think about it. And it's so much better of a feeling. You know, we're dealing with money here. I'm pulling out different things that I find interesting. Like the 09s I use as giveaways for people that buy. I gotta go through the 82s. Same with all the ones on the left. I'm kind of throwing on the left. Gotta go through them, look for the close AM in America variant. And then, of course, 10% of all sales on my eBay store are going to be going to helping people. Don't know how yet. I don't know how that's gonna take place, but that is gonna be a thing going forward. And as I get more where I want to be, you know, financially, it's gonna take a few years because I'm definitely going slow, but it may take a few years. But once I get where I want to be, it's gonna be increased. And I think as a side project, and we're gonna try to create a lot of meaning. And whoever that Ocean City girl was that helped create this mindset, and you know, I thank you. I know you're having a bad day, but you know, the act of generosity without wanting reciprocation, and making sure it was done in a way that, you know, it's not there to be given back, right? It's receiving a gift out of somebody else's graces, who they were inspired by something else, and maybe as we continue, more people that receive some form of the grace will be inspired to do the same. You know, maybe not, maybe so, but I do believe one person can have an impact, and maybe your impact is to impact the next person. You know, the world's been here for a long time, and people are impacted, and you don't know when that's going on, what the next person's going to do or become. And it shouldn't really matter, because you're not doing it for a reward, you're not doing it for an outcome. So that would be my thing. And if you're going to be generous, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Like if you're, I think Ramsey he did a talk and talked about giving $300 to a waitress, but he didn't stay to give it to her. You know, he left it under the mug and then went outside. And he did watch from a distance the reaction with the kids in the car, and that is a lot better than, you know, handing it to him and trying to pressure, I think, a reaction. Because if you don't get the reaction you want, what, are you going to take it back? Like, I don't know, it kind of feels disingenuous a little bit. Or those that record the reaction. Not that it's a bad thing, you know, they're still giving, but some of it I think is just purely for the, hey, I did a good thing, and getting that recognition. But I was always taught leaders do the right thing when nobody's looking. So pointing the camera out and trying to say you're doing the right thing isn't when nobody's looking. So I don't know how I feel necessarily about that. I get some of the channels that's how they bring in additional money to keep doing it. So I'm not faulting that, because if they can monetize that way to get more money to help more people, that's a good thing, I think. You know, if they're doing it for the right reasons. But I think that's really what it comes down to, is the intention of why you're doing what you're doing. And to bring it all in, that's why you make a budget, like a broken record, because you want that intention. It takes me way longer to go through a box of pennies than it does a box of halves, in case anybody was wondering. But that's alright. There are a lot more in pennies that I pull out than I do halves, mainly because it's so much cheaper. But there's also a couple variations I know on the top of my head that I'm looking for date-wise, like the 82, the close AMs, the 92, I think it's 92, 6, 8, 7, somewhere in there. So if I see and they look in condition where I can tell, I'll throw them aside. But if they're in beat up condition and you're not going to be able to see the AM, they just go back in the box, or a different box, to take a trip down to the bank. But we're what, 5. I think we're a little short on wheat pennies. I think I usually get about 10 for a box, but I got one from the 20s, so I'm not gonna complain. I have a lot of copper in this box, so we're hitting all around it. But never know what you're gonna pull. See, that was right there. And again, I don't know why I'm putting the copper aside. I don't have an intention to do with it. It's just gonna sit in a box. It's the best I can tell you. Maybe one day it'll be worth a lot of money because we're out of copper. I don't know. Don't feel like that anytime soon, but that's just one way of thinking. If I'm gonna do it for the silver, I might as well do it for the copper, because it's a lot cheaper to stash. 82. I think these are like copper coated or plated, but you can definitely tell a lot of the differences. Should be able to finish this up. We got 6 rolls left. Maybe I can still pull a couple more wheat. Now if I keep dropping them. Try to go speed around a little bit. Nope. Nope. 92. Try to keep them from spilling over because I feel like I'm about to knock them down. Haven't seen and I could just not have realized, but a lot of S mint marks. Sometimes they look close enough like a D. Oh, see, there we go. Knocked him down. Hold it. But I have 1 box copper pennies that's full. But I only got 1 box so far where it had the lid that I was able to keep open. Or keep closed, I should say. These other lids, they just like to not cooperate. Because the one had the little tooth in it to actually go in and keep it closed, so definitely kept that one. But I'm getting a lot of the $50 boxes that have the lid to it, so I might have to use one of them. And I'll be okay, because right now I'm using 2 of them. There'll be the what I take all the coins back to the bank in to turn in the coin machine, but I have 3 of them, and luckily I don't need them too frequently, so I'm sure I'll see 1 or 2 more if I really need it, but I'm definitely saving those boxes. And I appreciate whoever made and designed those boxes, because they are, I love them so much. Make it so much more easier to transport some currency. Because it's not open. No slam on the brakes. You're not going to have change all over. Have your car worth more money than because you lost some on the floor. So that's particularly why. Here's a foreign coin. You can tell just by the design, Canadian. I could tell based on the flat like edge. It's 86. There we go. We're all round. We don't have solid straight lines on our coins. So I didn't think it was going to be Canadian though. Don't know which country I thought it was going to be, but did not think Canadian. Ooh, in the 1 yard sale we did do, I did sell some couple pieces of foreign coins for $1. How much was it worth in that country? I don't know, because I don't remember what countries they took. Like I say, I always check the coin slot return machine, and usually there's some foreign change. I found 2 steel pennies. One I don't think they noticed because it was attached to the magnet in the bin, so I fished it out because it was right there. It wasn't too far in or anything, so I was able to fish it out relatively easy. But always check, always look. I mean, people are selling steel pennies for like $1 or $2, depending. They go for a lot more if they're in good condition. But it's also just a fun additive to a collection because they only made them for 1 year. And then if you're lucky enough to find the off year, the year after, oh god, 44, you know, you made some money. So that's one reason to always look. That is one thing with finances not being taught in school. How have you guys been teaching kids? You know, I'm about to have a daughter. I got to think about how to teach her how money works, because what's ever changing. I just watched a segment about you know, going cashless, and how there's an executive order to start looking into it. It was a while ago, but with that, you know, this wouldn't be a thing anymore. You know, cashless society, you're not hunting coins. So I'm not in favor of it just for that. My hobby would go away. I'd have to find something else to do. But also looking into like their own stable coin. I don't know. I don't think they've gotten far in it. Based on what they said, they were saying like China was a lot further along and we haven't started. It was like Fed coin or something. But do we trust a private company to be all knowing of anything we buy? You buy that extra Snickers bar. Do you really want somebody to know? But neither here nor there. I think be a little bit harder, but with the new generation coming up living on cards, maybe not. Maybe it's the older generations keeping it not that way. Because how many younger generation carry cash? I don't know how many people carry cash in general. I think like less than 1% of one of the studies that they said we're talking about, something like that, is done in cash. I don't know where they were looking at or anything like that, but could be interesting times. I do know that, you know, with them having access to everything, it'd be a lot easier to do what they did in Canada and freeze accounts, stuff like that. So too much control. I think cash is king, and that quote happened for a reason. But then a lot of your under the table work goes away. You know, you mow somebody's lawn, they can't slide you $20. They can't, you know, you can't go work at a or get tips. That's all or that'd all be documented. Any side project you do, if you're not a business, you're just helping a friend out, that's transaction. I don't know. There's so many reasons people can use cash, and it's already taxed. But anyway, that's a little bit of finance. Let's just go over. We found some wheat. Got 51, a 45. I think that's an S right there. I think that's, I have to look under the microscope, but it's either 17 or 47. That's a 20. That's a 58. So we got those. We got a couple Canadians, a couple 09s, a bunch of 82s to check out, and a bunch of copper. Alright guys, I will catch you back when I get the back box of halves, and I'll see you then.